Equity stakes, seed, grants, Series A, Series B, loans, common versus preferred shares, stock options, angel investors, venture capitalists. How do I raise funds? Where do I go? And when do I raise funds? I'm sure all these questions and words would keep coming to your mind. And I know everybody would know only two common options to raising funds. What do you think, Mr. Nishan? What is your approach of raising funds?
Initially, we arrange funds from the family and friends, and then the turnover goes up, we go to banks.
Raising funds from angel investors, venture capitalists, and any other investors.
Yes, that's the first thing which comes to an entrepreneur's mind for raising funds. And these two ways are common, but they also come with the liability of giving ownership to the investors. And that is why the fundraising process requires a crash course. Welcome to the Crowdbazaar first ever show on how to raise funds.
Thanks, Digvijay. A startup typically goes through various stages of fundraising during its evolution. Before I start talking about equity financing, I would like to touch upon what is equity. Equity is the percentage ownership of shares in your company. Let's say if you're the founder of a company and you own the entire company with no external investors. In that case, you own 100% of the company. Let's say if there are two co-founders who have an equal stake in the company and there are no external investors, then both the co-founders own 50% of the company. So this percentage ownership is known as equity. In equity financing, the startup gives its shares to the investor in exchange for money. Now this can happen by giving away existing shares of the company or by issuing new shares of the company. In the startup world, it's very popular to issue new shares known as preference shares to the investors in return for their investment. These preferred shares give the investors additional rights and control over the company. Seed rounds are raised from private and/or angel investors. After the seed round, normally if the startup is seeing some business value being proven and wants to expand at a much larger scale, it goes for venture financing or to the VCs. And what happens now is you have these different series of funding rounds, Series A, Series B, Series C, and so forth. If the startup or company is successful during these stages, it might even look for the next stage, which is doing an IPO, an initial public offering, or can even be acquired as an acquisition by another company. A debt is simply a loan, and in debt financing, startups often get this loan from credit institutions and/or private investors. Just like any other loan, this also has an interest component involved, which has to be paid frequently, along with the initial principal amount that was borrowed. Now, normally institutions or investors require the startup to give a certain form of security, which we call collateral, and often the collateral requirements are very high, which is making this method of financing very difficult for startups. Some examples or most commonly used sources of debt financing are bank and commercial loans. In recent years, startups have found some new fundraising options to be very valuable and very flexible. These include P2P or peer-to-peer lending, convertible notes, warrant, and safes. P2P or peer-to-peer lending. It is the practice of crowd-lending money to individuals, startups, and businesses. In this type of financing, secured or unsecured loans can be given. Safe or simple agreement for future equity. A safe is an investment contract between a startup and an investor, where the investor gets the right to own equity or shares of the company after triggering events. Normally, these events could be a future funding round by VCs or sale of the company. Once these events are completed, the investor actually gets equity at a future date as agreed based on these terms. Convertible notes. Convertible notes are debt instruments which convert into equity in the future. In this setup, the startup and the investor agree upon certain terms which need to be fulfilled in order to convert the loan into shares of the startup. Hence, we see that after starting off as debt, it clearly becomes equity. So we can also call it a hybrid instrument of fundraising. Any startup is as good as its people and employees, which is why I would also like to mention about ESOPs, or employee stock option plans. Now, ESOPs are benefit plans that allow employees of a startup to get equity shares or ownership in the company. Typically, this happens after 3 to 5 years. Startups who often want to incentivize employees during early stages of the company can often adopt the ESOP plan.
And that was debt financing for you. All valid questions and concerns, and that is why we have invited Nakul, the co-founder of Crowdbazaar, a crowdfunding platform that helps entrepreneurs and artists to raise funds.
Thank you, Divisha, for giving me a brief introduction. And to answer your query as a tech entrepreneur, as an artist for you, I'm going to be introducing you a new concept, which is alternative financing. So to start with the alternative finances, we have categorized it into 5 categories. Crowdfunding is one way of financing, then we have invoice advances, then we have passion investing, then we have alternative investments, and then we have blockchain investing. To source funds from external sources, crowdfunding and invoice advances is the solution for you. So there are 5 types of crowdfunding. First is donation-based crowdfunding, then we have reward-based or pre-order-based crowdfunding, then we have equity-based crowdfunding, then we have debt-based crowdfunding, and then we have independent crowdfunding. Donation-based crowdfunding can be for the social causes, personal reasons, and it can be for the medical treatment as well, though the contributor don't get any returns against the contribution they make. Reward-based crowdfunding has all the features of donation-based crowdfunding, but it can be also utilized in the creative, commercial, and social projects. Here the difference is the contributors are also able to get the rewards in against the contribution they are making.
Are there any other ways where we can just sustain our operations without asking for investments?
So in your particular case itself, as a tech entrepreneur, if you are coming out with the electric bicycle, you have the prototype product with you. Now you can actually reach out to the audience who are going to be your end users, or who actually believe in these kind of innovation. You go to them with your prototype product. We do all the crowdfunding campaign for you, and then with that campaign, people would be actually contributing a small amount towards your particular product or the product itself. They would be pre-ordering the product from you, and you would be able to get, suppose, 100 orders from them. You would be delivering those 100 orders by actually working towards actually making it happen. It may take 2 months, 3 months, which you have to communicate to your end users or the backers, who would be getting to know, okay, after 3 months you would be delivering that product to the end user. So here you are actually able to get the market, you are able to get the customer, you are acquiring customers, you are not diluting any equity in this kind of a crowdfunding, and you are able to get pre-orders from the customer. So you are into a business without actually getting dilution.
Yes, this is great, but an artist who doesn't have any registered entity or an organization, then how can he get any kind of fundings? So look, I am a musician, I only perform and get paid for it. So I don't need to show any registration certificates or any organization which I am building or working with. So I don't think that how can I get any fundings from government or whatever who can provide me fundings. So can you please elaborate it a little?
To answer your query of raising funds, and if your company is not registered, then crowdfunding, as a reward-based crowdfunding, is the solution for you. When you as an artist or as a musician, you come to a crowdfunding platform, the crowdfunding team work with you and create your campaign. Your previous work is being showcased, and if the community likes your project, want to support your venture or your project, they are actually going to be contributing and supporting you. Against that, they would be getting the rewards that can be a live music passes or a local concert or show passes, and that way they would be actually getting some reward against the contribution they are making. The benefits which you would be receiving as a campaigner would be you are able to build your community, you would be able to get the fan base, you would be able to get the promotions done for your video, and you would be able to raise funds for your venture or your project. In equity-based crowdfunding, the campaigner would be able to raise small amount from the multiple investors, that can be retail investors, accredited investors, who would be putting the money in their organization in a form of equity. Similarly, in case of debt-based crowdfunding, the money is being raised from the small investors in form of debt business loans, which is being raised by the entrepreneurs for their business ventures.
What if we don't want to give away our control and ownership? I'm asking because we are into manufacturing of bathroom fittings and supply of this, and as we are into traditional business, and in our business we have to make a relationship with our dealers and distributor, and somehow it becomes sometimes so confidential. We cannot afford to give away our client list or our dealers list to any of them, as we are into import and export of same thing, so they are quite of confidential thing. So what is the possibility that our ownership and control keep in our hand, and we can raise fund somehow?
To answer Nishant's query, where he wants to raise funds but don't want to dilute equity and want to lose control in the business, invoice advances is one of the best instrument to handle these kind of cases. Invoice advances is a kind of a debt-based crowdfunding instrument where the entrepreneur is able to raise money through his previous transaction or business activities. Now suppose taking Nishant's example, where Nishant received an order of 10 lakh rupees from ABC vendor, and he will have to deliver the product instantly, but he doesn't have that much of cash flow right now. So he goes to a crowdfunding platform. The crowdfunding platform circulates his invoice in their investors network. Some of the investors who want to sponsor Nishant's invoices give their assent to the invoice, and the amount of that invoice is being given to the Nishant instantly. So suppose investors approve his invoice of 10 lakh rupees, Nishant receives 10 lakh rupees instantly. With that 10 lakh rupees, he is able to deliver the goods and services what he has to deliver to the vendor. Within 3 months, suppose the invoice is to be mature in 3 months or any other time period, the investors will also get their return from that amount. So Nishant will be getting 9,50,000, 9,60,000 instantly, and after 3 months, investor will be receiving 10 lakh rupees. So that is how investors are making money out of it. So there are two kinds of invoice advances. One is the invoice discounting and one is the invoice factoring. In invoice discounting, the ownership is retained by the entrepreneur. So suppose in case of a default done by the investors have to reach out to the entrepreneur itself in reclaiming the repayments, because invoice ownership is retained by the entrepreneur. But in case of invoice factoring, the ownership is transferred to the investors itself. So suppose the default is being done by the investors would be reaching out directly to the to reclaim the repayments in the case of default.
I would like to cover this crowdfunding from two point of views. One is from the person who is seeking funds, and the other one would be the investors who are actually putting in funds. Now the people who are seeking funds, they can belong to two different verticals. One could be ventures, where they would like to expand their business but they are in short of funds. The other could be social impact, where the profitability is less or the profitability is very minuscule and people don't like to invest in that. Now when we talk from the point of view of the investors, again the investors, there are lot many people who would like to put in funds but they don't want to put in huge amounts. So if they want to pick up a very small chunk of equity, maybe a couple of shares, then in a venture, then they would like to get onto this crowdfunding platform and they get an opportunity to invest in those kind of ventures. Whereas there are some people who would like to work in the field of social impact, they would like to contribute in the social impact or the fund impact, but they are unable to do that because they have got very small amounts to invest. So these are the guys, they come as a pool. There are lot many investors who get in and they contribute small amounts which become sizable at the end of the day, and the entrepreneur or the person who's trying to create something in the field of social impact is able to do that.
I believe everybody has an idea how to raise funds, and this crash course will definitely help you throughout your life. And if you have any questions, any concern, you can just shoot and write a comment in below, and we will try to answer all your questions in the upcoming videos. Thank you so much for being patient and being so kind in listening.